How's it going, everybody? Bit of a different video today. I just kind of wanted to talk about Wynn's place, both in the metagame and as like a card design space issue, and just some of the problems that I think Wind is really facing. And I don't know how Hobby Japan or Square Enix really solves it without starting to go more aggressive with banning cards. But I don't think Wind is in a very good spot right now. And that's not to say that Wind doesn't have really strong cards. But I think they're really stagnant on Wind design. And they're afraid to push it because I really don't think the direction that Wind has been going, since pretty much the printing of Luso, is something they want to continue to do. And I don't think anything exemplifies this more than Yuri. So if you look at, if I go on Materia Hunter and I go to all the cards and I want to filter by just limit breaks, which you can do here like this. Every single limit break has utility, in my opinion. I think all of these cards, I think Zach rounding up pings is fantastic for 6. Maybe a little bit, kind of starting to bring Hilder into a slightly higher kill. Montleonis is obviously a meta warping threat. Victoria and Surges are fantastic. Ace is fine. Shantoto is Shantoto. She does what she sort of does. I think she's kind of poorly designed. I could talk about that in a different video as well, that I think this card kind of just whiffed. Mott's really good. Cloud and Lightning are both fantastic and have different use cases. Tidus is a win condition for a whole bunch of decks, and Leo is, I can't believe Leo was printed with this text. And then Leela's like fine. I know that like Steve is pretty content to rip on her, but I think there are situations where she is actually really useful and really strong. So both with Chaos Arc or the ability to outsid Randall for decks that don't have a natural way to deal with them. I think it's like she needs to exist, and I like that she's there. And then you have Yuri. And Yuri is a 5 CP 4K vanilla in a lot of situations. And even if you have his alternate text, he's a 5 CP 8K vanilla. He is just worse than Mott with a different condition. And sure, there's the whole thing of, oh, you can play the Chalinka. Let me tell you, nobody's playing the Chalinka. It's just such a whiff, and it's very, very, very obvious that they wanted to make sure that Wynn's LBs could not help the cast decks. Which makes sense if you think about how card design works. Usually they're designing about 3 sets out. So what the 22 cards that are here are kind of almost a response to the Opus 18 meta. And in the Opus 18 meta, Mono Wind was still probably one of, if not the best decks in the game. And you can't give that deck free casts. And it's a pretty dire problem for Mono Wind, honestly, that like Ace is fine but doesn't do anything. And Leela is like the only other thing you can play unless you want to like splash either the class Moogle to get Earth or Philo to get Leah, which to be fair might actually just be what Wind has to start doing to get value out of this mechanic that almost feels like it should be tailor-made for it. And they were so conservative with this, and it really starts to kind of show that Wind is starting to run into a parasitic design space. I think that, for example, if you look at Patrick Pan, I'm going to take, this is the list that Eureka won the 5th Mage Ensign with. And I'm going to pull up, excuse me for the live editing done cheap, but I'm going to go on Collector's Cash's Facebook. And I'm going to pull up Patrick Panettone's list from this Materia Cup. Should have had this ahead of time. I kind of just didn't think too much about this, but you scroll through, and here we go. Patrick Panettone. I'm going to open this in a new tab, so I don't have any Facebook information on here. These lists are practically identical. We are, like, he bumped to 3 Zidane, but, like, let's scroll through this and count the cards that were printed in the last 2 sets, ignoring the LB deck. Because obviously those are only available in this one. But we have 3 Rosa. Okay, that's 14. Sedane's 16. 16. Shinryu is 20. That's the most recent card. Let's keep going. 19, 3, 16. Uh-oh. 19, 16, 4. Uh-oh. 6, 12, 18, 19, 2, 10, 12, 15, 16, 8, 20. Another 20 here. Nothing in this deck. Not a single card was printed in the last 2 sets of the game. Let's just like think about that for a second and realize how ridiculous it is that this deck is still the best way of playing Mono Wind, which is clearly, by the way, something they think you should be playing because they printed Ace this set. Not a single card in the last 2 sets was worth playing in this deck. Not a single summon, not a single forward, not a single backup, not a monster. And if you look at the Limit Break deck, they're not even he's not even playing the Yuri. It's literally not even worth having it in the Limit Break deck because you're more likely to steal a backup with Zidane and play your opponent's Limit Break colors. How sad is that? And like I said, I don't know what the solution is other than like banning Luso and then maybe trying to push. I actually will say I kind of like the concept of what Ace goes for. This idea that Wind is play all the characters, get all of them on the field. But honestly, at this point, Mono Earth is kind of the deck that does that. Thanks to and they have a payoff for it that's insane in Montleonis. Ace is like the problem with Ace and Wind is that the best card in Wind is the Chocobo Summon. And the Chocobo Summon takes a card you control off of the field. And this deck is so fine-tuned. It doesn't have extra characters to put a body on the field. We're not even running Ash as like a free cast that kind of hangs around and maybe functions as a draw engine. So it really feels like Ace is designed for an archetype of Wind that just doesn't exist. And it gets even worse. Like I was thinking the other day, I was talking with Travis, and Travis was talking about how he went to locals, and he was playing, and he played against Knights, and the Knights player put 4 forwards out on turn 1. And clearly, because Ace exists, and because Carpenter exists, and all of those, they really think that mono deck should have a place in the metagame. And I can't think what the intended way to play against that is. Your opponent spamming forwards to the field. Like, nothing in this set deals with a wide field in the slightest. And clearly, by the way, they think cast decks should maybe still be a thing because Dorgan exists. And hilariously, Dorgan sees more play outside of cast decks because it turns out those cast decks don't want to pay 4 CP for, 3 kind of okay-ish effects when they can do anything they want to elsewhere. But you look at like the cards that are printed to deal with wide boards, and you have like the Goddess in 20 and Fat Chocobo, and neither of those are great answers. Fat Chocobo, you're paying 8 CP, you'd still leave like the Ramza and the you'd still leave Ramza and Corilla on the field, and they'll just kill you in a couple turns. If you go with the Goddess, the Ramza is going to break him and then deal 5 damage to your face before all the forwards die. It's just like, and I'm not saying that like every deck should be viable or able to do everything, but I also just want to know what the thought process is. Is the thought process just they will always play Shinryu because it's a board wipe that like somewhat synergizes with the deck? Because that doesn't seem like a very good solution to me. And I don't know what the solution is other than maybe dialing back on some card designs, trying to remove some of the speed and aggression out of the format and making something like this viable again. If they want it to be viable, maybe they do. I do think that they should, like, I would love to ban Luso so we could get good Wind cards printed again, because Luso says that the only thing that's worth doing in Wind is casting 7 cards in a turn. And so the rest in the deck building cost of Luso is extremely high. It's one of the reasons I was so gung-ho on... pardon me again. I'm going to have to pull up my deck list for the most recent event. The it's the reason I was so gung ho on playing Earth is that I don't have to just rely on Luso. And that's another discussion of there's an argument that this should actually just play all four Warrior of Light colors and just be another good stuff soup deck. I don't know. I really like Wind as a deck, and I really enjoy playing Wind, and I don't like seeing, the best way to put it is if your goal of a TCG is to get people to buy your new cards, what Wind player has bought new cards in the last two sets? Hypothetically, I could have refused to buy a box of 21 and 22, picked up two ace and then a bunch of just garbage rare limit breaks from the last set, and my deck is constructed. It is the constructed best possible version of Mono Wind. And you can see that like I said, they're scared of the Mono Wind stuff. Edge, as one of your legend slots in this, doesn't really fit any kind of a cast strategy. The Goddess is intentionally not a cast card. Vayne, they put the Warp Legend in Wind for some reason. Like, there's just, I don't know. I just want to see a direction for Wind that makes sense and functions with the way the game is currently played. Because as it stands right now, the only real Wind card that like sees play, like you'll see like a one of Enkidu in some Gilgamesh decks. Kane occasionally sees play. This Ranger is just pathetic compared to the others of the cycle. Like, hilariously bad. I cannot believe this is the same set as the Red Mage and the, what is it, Bard, and so on and so forth. Like, how is this even remotely comparable in quality? I think that, like, Sid is a great limited card, as is, like, Sosha's actually, like, decent and limited, but I just, like, Bartz is the one that's seen the most play from this set, and he's not a mono win card. He's intentionally designed to not be one, so I don't know. Like I said, I don't think every mono element should be viable at all times, but if you're printing cards like Ace that clearly want mono to be a thing, what's the purpose of printing a legend for an element and not giving it a home or a way to be played? That's all. I'll see y'all in the next one. Take care.